Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our collaborative webinar between Department of Health and Human Services and the Maine Department of Education. We will be introducing our main presenters, and I'm very pleased that we have special guests Sarah Ferguson and Signe Lynch, also from the Maine Department of Education, to help you in the amazing work that you do to support our students in foster care. My name is Julie Smythe. I direct the Office of School and Student Supports, and I am the official ESEA Foster Care point of contact. Every state needs to have someone from the Department of Education representing and supporting our students in foster care, and that is myself. And I am from the Office of School and Student Supports, where we strive to ensure that our schools are inclusive, healthy, safe, and supportive communities. And I'm going to introduce my colleague and partner in this work today, Jill.
Hi, everyone. I am Jill Hunter. I am the Manager of Field Operations over at OCFS. And the Maine DHS Office of Child and Family Services is dedicated to helping create a future where all Maine children and families are safe, stable, happy, and healthy. So good to see everybody.
We would like to ground ourselves in the mission of our organizations. At the Maine Department of Education, we promote the best learning opportunities for all Maine students by focusing on a whole student approach, encouraging innovation, respecting educators, providing information, guidance, professional learning, and support to schools and educators, providing adequate and equitable school funding and resources, and inspiring trust in our schools.
And the mission for DHHS is the department strives to ensure that Maine children grow up in a safe, healthy, and supportive environment, allowing them to thrive throughout their lives.
At the Maine Department of Education, we have some strategic priorities. I won't read them, but I'm hopeful that you are drawn to the important words around trust, educator workforce, excellence and equity, student and school safety, health and well-being, culture of innovation, and continuous improvement. Not only is A stand for Apple, but it also stands for acronyms. And we have a lot of acronyms that we use in education that we thought would be helpful in going through for you today. So DOE and SEA are used interchangeably. Maine Department of Education is our state education agency. So when you see DOE or SEA, it's the same thing. OSSS is the Office of School and Student Supports, where Signe and I work our magic and our specialty.
And DHHS stands for Department of Health and Human Services. OCFS stands for Office of Child and Family Services, and CPS is Child Protective Services.
And Jill, is it safe to say that those three are often used interchangeably?
Yes.
Yes. Many of you are representing SAUs, our school administrative units, which is in state language also synonymous with LEA. You are the local education agency. So you'll often hear us refer either to SAU or LEA. And there are 4 different points of contact here today. You are all here, or most of you are the SAU foster care points of contact, also known as LEA foster care points of contact.
And for Office of Child and Family Services, our staff that are present today are known as the District Foster Care Points of Contact. And we have one in each of our districts in Maine. So we have 8 total. So we have one staff member from the Office of Child and Family Services who is the point of contact for foster care.
I am the SEA foster care point of contact.
And I am the DHHS foster care point of contact.
A few more acronyms. We often shorten best interest determination to be bid process or bid. MOU is the memorandum of understanding that currently forms the collaboration between the 2 agencies. And then many of you know that IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan, which comes into play when we talk about transportation. Our learning objectives for today, by the end of the session, you will know, or you will be quizzed on, hint, hint, the definition of student in foster care, the importance of a best interest determination, the significance of the school of origin, who has the final decision in the bid process, what is meant by immediate enrollment, how transportation costs are collaborated upon and coordinated, and who your regional OCFS point of contact and how you, who that person is and how you are to contact them. So very rigorous afternoon for you. Thought it would be helpful, especially with some changes at the national level. All of this, or these guidelines, stemmed from the reauthorization of ESEA in 2015. From there, the Department of Education and the Department of Health and Human Services created joint guidance. And for those of you who have attended in the past, our joint guidance has stemmed from the August 11th, 2016 guidance. From there, the Memorandum of Understanding was created. Technically, the Memorandum of Understanding was through December 31st of 2024, but given where we are at, we are waiting to, or we are currently working on that, because in November, the department and DHHS issued this non-regulatory guidance. So we are working on revising the MOU. If you have ideas that you would like us to consider, you will receive our email addresses and can please send that our way. But you will definitely know, I will be sharing the process with you along the way. I do think it's going to be helpful, though. I will be sharing, Jill and I will be sharing some of the language from this November 2024, just to put it in reference. The 2016 guidance was 28 pages. The 2024 guidance is over 75 pages. So it is a little bit, or not a little, it is a lot more clear and hopeful. I am hopeful that it will provide us that clarity that we need so that you can be optimal in your jobs. So here's an example of some November guidance language. Some of this you already do and it's on your radar. Thought it would be helpful. And if it is on here and you do not currently do this, please do not stress. Do not add it to a to-do list. We will be guiding you through any processes that would change. So as the LEA point of contact, right now I am only speaking to the school unit members that are present. So your role and responsibility: develop a process for completing a bid, document outcomes of the processes, so you have that, I would think, in the student's file, resolve disputes related to bid processes and school of origin transportation, facilitate the transfer of records and ensuring immediate enrollment when a student in foster care changes school placements, facilitate data sharing with DHHS consistent with FERPA and other federal or state laws, regulations, and policies, develop and coordinate implementation of local school of origin transportation processes, ensure that students in foster care are enrolled in and regularly attending school. And finally, provide professional development and training to your staff on the Title I educational stability provisions and the unique educational needs of students in foster care. And for those of you who are also McKinney-Vento, you can see the similarities, but please know that we are here to guide you if we are going to be demanding a little bit more of you in the future. And Jill, if you'd like to read through the roles and responsibilities for your OCFS district points of contact, this is the one that refers to the 8 members throughout the state.
Sure, thank you. So serve as one of the primary contacts for school staff, district personnel, and other service providers. Coordinate with the corresponding LEA point of contact on implementation of the Title I educational stability provisions. Establish a process to notify the LEA when a student attending the LEA has been placed in foster care or experiences a foster care placement change. Establish a procedure for completing the bid process with all relevant parties. Facilitate transfer of records to the LEAs, including immunizations, medical records, and copies of IEPs and Section 504 plans, and supporting documents and other records relating to the provision of modifications and services required by IEP and Section 504 plans. Work with the LEAs to ensure that students in foster care are immediately enrolled in school and where needed to coordinate transportation services.
Not to overwhelm you, OCFS, but you're so important. You have 2 slides.
Manage bids and transportation cost agreements between the LEA and DHHS. Provide training to LEA and DHHS staff on educational needs of students in foster care, including state and local policies. Coordinate with the LEA regarding data sharing for students in foster care, consistent with the FERPA and other federal or state privacy laws, regulations, and policies. Coordinate services so that students in foster care can access early educational services for which they are eligible, including Head Start and Early Head Start, home visiting, and preschool programs administered by the ESEA and LEA, and screening and referrals to health, mental health, dental, and other appropriate services. Inform parents of students in foster care of the student's educational rights and provide public notice of the educational rights of students in foster care to community stakeholders. I do just want to add that the pieces that I just read for our OCFS points of contact, that a lot of this is going to be in partnership with the caseworker on the case, but you are the point of contact with the school related to this. So I just wanted to clarify that piece. Okay, and then the definition of students in foster care. So 24-hour out-of-home care placed away from their parents. DHS has placement and care responsibilities. I'm going to go to the side and just read the slide to the side to explain that a little bit further. So 24-hour substitute care for children placed away from their parents or guardians and for whom the child welfare agency has placement and care responsibilities. So family foster homes of relatives or formal kinship care, group homes, emergency shelters, residential facilities, childcare institutions, and pre-adoptive homes. This definition also includes children who are placed in trial reunification with their parents while DHS retains placement and care responsibility. And then students previously identified as awaiting foster care under McKinney-Vento, and includes resource homes and foster and kinship placements and crisis programs.
We have experienced some confusions around when it comes to McKinney-Vento, so we have invited Signe to talk a little bit more about how the confusion might have come to be and how we are trying to clarify that. So Signe, welcome and thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. Seeing a lot of familiar names in this meeting today, so it's great to see everyone. I am the McKinney-Vento specialist, so I serve in the state coordinator role of homeless education for Maine. And something we do see quite a bit, and this is clarification, awaiting foster care used to be part of McKinney-Vento, so potentially students that were taken into the care of DHHS and did not have a formal foster placement yet. So thinking of students that might be temporarily staying in a hotel with a caseworker for the time being right now, may have previously been considered awaiting foster care and would have picked up that McKinney-Vento status. But as part of the Every Student Succeeds Act in 2015, they did formally remove that awaiting foster care and strengthen the foster care provisions within the title programs to really expand the educational stability and also divide those two, foster care and McKinney-Vento. So there's very rare times that a student who is in the custody of DHHS would also qualify for McKinney-Vento. Situations that a student would have that dual identification would be a student that may have been McKinney-Vento eligible at the start of the school year because of housing instability, and then DHHS does come in and takes custody of that child and care responsibility. They would carry that status for that school year because McKinney-Vento status is for the duration of the school year. There's some unique situations that were clarified in the most recent non-regulatory guidance that talk about students that run away from foster care. If you have a situation like that, please loop us, Julie, myself, and Jill into those situations, and we can help with that identification piece.
Signe, thank you so much. And if any of you have questions, we will be here till the end. And when we come back from breakout rooms, you can ask questions or put them in the chat for us to answer also.
Certainly. And Julie, could I just say one last thing about the McKinney-Vento piece was just that we are seeing, when we monitor for McKinney-Vento, one of the big things that we do see in the monitoring is when we're looking at school policies, awaiting foster care is in many, many school policies still, just because it hasn't been updated from Every Student Succeeds Act. So that's just something to note for when you're looking at school policies. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you for
yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I probably don't need to explain why educational stability is so important for our students in foster care. It goes without saying that frequent school transitions have lasting academic, social, and emotional impacts. So this was strengthened in 2015 to maximize educational stability so that students in foster care can have improved attendance, minimize any educational gaps, and ideally help families stay connected. Foster care is part of Title I, Part A provisions, and those provisions are why you have both Jill and me. So it does require the state foster point of contact now, and whereas previously it was connected with McKinney-Vento, but as of 2015, two separate positions at the state level. Doesn't apply to the LEAs. You can be both McKinney-Vento and foster care, and I know many of you are. But the other provisions are that it ensures educational stability, establishes specific educational rights, which I will go over in detail in a few minutes, and requires a district foster care point of contact, which is why many of you are here. This slide is probably most helpful to our OCFS points of contact here today. When you need to find out who your LEA point of contact is, go to our neo.maine.gov site, select primary contact type, and this is the spreadsheet that lists every district foster care point of contact. Or if you are a school of origin foster care point of contact and you would like to find out where the student is now living, you might need to reach out to the foster care point of contact in another district, and this is how you would find that person. So what are the educational rights of our students in foster care? There are three. The first is they have a right to a best interest determination. They have the right to immediate enrollment, and they have the right to stay at their school of origin and have transportation to that school of origin if it is in their best interest. What is meant by school of origin? It is the school the student was attending when placed in foster care or at the time of that change in foster placement. Very important that students should remain enrolled in their school of origin unless, after a best interest determination, it is decided not to be in their best interest. So we want to assume that the student staying put is in his or her or their best interest. We know that if a student moves from Lewiston to Madawaska, that probably is not going to be the case, but I'm sure that OCFS tries to limit such moves. What is meant by a best interest determination? It's simply decisions about which school a student should attend. We really want that to be collaborative as much as possible between the OCFS caseworker or supervisor and the points of contact at the school. And there are a wide variety of factors that can come into play for that. Collaboration should include those who are in a best position to understand the student's unique needs. And you will hear me say this over and over again, the student should remain in the school of origin until that bid process occurs. Least disruption possible. This is new for this year's training. I put together a scenario to help hopefully clarify exactly what is meant by a best interest determination, because sometimes it's a simple conversation. But here's the sample scenario. The CPS caseworker notifies the LEA foster care point of contact that a student in foster care in that school is transitioning to a new placement outside the catchment area. Maybe it's 30 minutes away, maybe it's 3 hours away. If the placement is within a reasonable distance, the caseworker notifies the LEA foster care point of contact where the student resides and endorses that it is in the best interest of the student to remain in their school of origin. The LEA foster care point of contact needs to be made aware that there is a foster care student in their residential area. The CPS caseworker inquires if there are existing transportation options. Sometimes there is already a van that is going between communities. Sometimes they're already existing, and maybe the foster care point of contact knows that. If not, it is up to the CPS caseworker to begin researching options. You know, is the foster care parent willing to transport? Is there a service that could be used? If needed, a more formal best interest determination is conducted. So if there are questions about it, whether or not it's reasonable distance, and then that it could look like an IEP, but please don't confuse the two. Best interest determination, if that conversation can't suffice, then it would go into more of a meeting format, and that could be virtual, it could be in person, but you would want it to occur as soon as possible so that the student's education is not disrupted. Let's say the placement is not within a reasonable distance. Let's say it is 2 hours away. The CPS caseworker notifies the LEA where the student's placement resides and begins a supportive transition to the new LEA. The CPS caseworker connects the LEA foster care point of contact of the new LEA with the school of origin point of contact so that a supportive transition can occur. And if needed, a more formal best interest determination can support such a transition. I'm hopeful that that little scenario helped, and you will receive these slides so that you can refer to it in the future. On our website for students in foster care, we do have sample best interest determination to clearly delineate the process for you. These worksheets are not required. They are just helpful. They are supposed to be helpful to facilitate the bid process. So this is an example of one that you would find. This is an example of a PDF, a fillable PDF that you might find helpful. Again, not required, just encouraged to facilitate and document accordingly. And here is yet another example. Who should or could be involved in the best interest determination? So if the phone call between CPS caseworker and the LEA point of contact does not confirm that what needs to happen, it needs to be more formal. We do encourage you that if the student is of an appropriate age, that they are involved. Sometimes the parent guardian, the resource parent, the educational decision maker, and we have a special guest who will go deeper into that in a few minutes. It could be the guardian ad litem. I mean, you know, some of you have experienced cases where there are many involved, and if they need to be a part of the conversation of where the students should attend, it's certainly supported in the non-regulatory guidance. I also list supervisors, district points of contact at both the residence and the school of origin. It could be a special educator, it could be a school counselor, a teacher, or one of the points of contact that you are going to meet today. We thought it would be helpful to have Sarah Ferguson from our office of our OSCE office to come and talk about exactly what is meant by educational decision maker. And Sarah, I'm going to ask you to come off mute, and I'll turn it over to you for a few slides.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Ferguson, and I know that I've met some of you before, and I work for the Office of Special Services and Inclusive Education, and I oversee the Special Education Surrogate Parent Program. And every student who's in special education, so whatever I'm talking about are students with IEPs or who are in referral to special ed or have special ed services. And so the federal and state laws surrounding special education say that every student has a right for someone to represent them for their special education meetings. And that person cannot be their DHHS guardian, because the DHHS guardian works for the state and the state oversees the school. It's a conflict of interest. So they have somebody else hold special education rights. Most often, it is a foster care parent in the definition in both federal and state law. Foster parent is in the definition of parent. So it's very rare that I appoint educational surrogate parents. However, foster parents and special education surrogate parents hold the same special ed rights. So the law says that a surrogate parent is appointed when a parent can't be identified or located, a student is a state ward, or a student is an unaccompanied homeless youth as defined in McKinney-Vento. And for those of you who are McKinney-Vento also points of contact, there's this nifty little chart to determine whether they are homeless or not, if an unaccompanied youth is homeless or not homeless. Next slide, please. DHHS guardians have general education rights, such as enrolling kids in school, signing field trip reports, signing school lunch things, those sorts of things. But anything that comes out of the special education office, the surrogate parent or the foster parent holds those rights. DHHS guardians are an invited member of the IEP team, but again, the parent holds what's called the procedural safeguards, and those are the ways in, if a parent disagrees with the school, those are their bumper. I can't think of the word that I wanted, but that's their procedural safeguards. So anytime anything comes out of the special education office, it might have the DHHS guardian's name on it, but it needs to have either the foster parent or the surrogate parent's name on it. So if you folks have students who are, well, you guys are LEA, but you still might, if your students are living in maybe residential treatment and attending public school, some students are placed through the Office of Behavioral Health process outside the state of Maine in residential treatment. So if you folks have any students who don't have foster parents or don't have anybody who's listed as the definition of parent, you can't find a parent, then you would contact me and ask me for an educational surrogate parent. And if you folks know somebody who would be that parent and take on that role, then that's great. And if not, we have a list of volunteers. So when you get this, these slides, there is a link to right there. There's a link to our web page, and that is my information.
Now we will transition to Jill talking a little bit more about the OCFS points of contact.
Okay, so as you can see listed below, we have each of the points of contact for OCFS listed here. Their email information is their first name dot their last name at maine.gov, so you can find any of them that way. And I did also just want to mention, when we do the breakout groups, we are going to put you all in rooms that are connected to the district points of contact in the areas that you work. So if you could just take note of the number, and that's the breakout group that we want you to go in when we get to that section. So you can see District 1 is Mariah. I'm going to read down through this, but they are going to introduce themselves at the breakout group, so I won't have them do that right now. But District 2 is Elijah, 3 is Deanna, 4 Christine, 5 Lindsay, 6 Jennifer, 7 Anna, 8 Chad, and then statewide is me.
Thank you, Jill. These are just some of the considerations that come into play for the best interest determination. Again, the law supports what is truly, the student has probably been through so many trials and tribulations and transitions that anything that we can do to minimize those transitions. But you can take into account the time of academic year, how long it will be. And sometimes I think I know our CPS caseworkers might know something that we may not be privy to. And so if they are really adamant about a student going to a certain school, there's most likely a reason behind that. Transportation costs they cannot be. I realize that resources are extremely scarce these days. It doesn't seem to be getting any better, but transportation costs should not be a factor in determining the best interest. It really has to be what is best for that child. They have been through enough. They've been through transitions. If staying in their school of origin is truly what is best for them, then we need to do anything we can to make that happen. And so we want strong collaboration between our district points of contact and our DHHS points of contact to ensure that students who need transportation to remain in their school of origin can do so. I know, easier said than done. What guides our decision making, though, is this formal MOU between Maine DOE and DHHS. And this is what it states. It states that if a student has an IEP with transportation as a related service, and please hear me, when it's not just that they have an IEP, there is some confusion around that. The IEP clearly has to state that transportation is a related service. They need special equipment, they need an aid, and it's pretty few and far between, but I know that they do exist. The DOE pays for all of that. Lori Freeman is your point of contact for that, lori.freeman@maine.gov, and I believe it's done through the Sarah, I'm going to need the EFSO4. What is that acronym?
Yes, you are so good, Julie. Yes, and all of your special education offices will know all about state agency clients and reimbursement and EFSO4. So, yep.
Awesome. If the student does not have an IEP that stipulates transportation, your CPS caseworker or the point of contact who is here with you today, they need to see if they can assist with transportation. I know many of them have transported, working all hours to transport kids to limit, really going out of their way. Some of the regions have strong partnerships. And some may have foster care parents who are willing to do so. But the second sort of line is to see what CPS can do to support transportation. If all of those options have been exhausted, it's similar to McKinney-Vento guidelines where the school of origin and the school of residence split transportation costs 50-50. And again, I know that's easier said than done, but you have many thought partners right on the screen who will help you navigate that if need be. Immediate enrollment is a legal right for our students in foster care, which means that your schools cannot wait for required documents. Students need limited disruption to their education, students in foster care. While the student, the CPS caseworker will do their best to get that documentation to you, but you really need to enroll immediately. One of the guidelines of the November non-regulatory guidance is they put a number down that, you know, if it has to be within 3 days, I mean, that is not written in stone, but it does give you sort of a framework of what is meant nationally by immediate enrollment. And then what DHHS may be able to provide. In the meantime, any notice around emergency contact, residents, who the contacts are at CPS, any record releases, and transportation needs. And I think you're all aware that if there is a dispute, if the school of origin, the school of residence, there's a conflict of where the student should be attending, DHHS does have the final decision. That is something that is in our MOU. Obviously, we want it to be collaborative, but sometimes it does get to the point where DHHS is going to make that final say, but we really hope that it can be as collaborative as possible and not get to that point. So in a moment, I'm going to open the breakout rooms and you're going to have 15 to 20 minutes. So it's 4:10. So we're going to give you 15 minutes. Please introduce yourself, your name, all the hats you wear, whether you wear different hats at an LEA/SAU or within OCFS. And hopefully there will be time to talk about some discussion points. What is the current reality in the region? What are ways that you can or we can improve communication and work together? Well, thank you for the conversations that you had. I know I didn't give you the full 15 minutes, but we were thinking the largest group we had was 4, and hopefully you had an opportunity to at least put names to faces and have some conversation. Jill, do you want to come off mute and share the answer to what we discussed with Christine's great question?
Sure. So in terms of a policy or practice around that, it depends on what the situation or circumstances. So one of the things that we were talking about is that while we don't have necessarily a written protocol for every single school between the school and OCFS in terms of what to call on, we do on OCFS's end have staff available if something urgent happens at school. And you can't reach the caseworker, you could always hit 0, and that will bring you to one of our administrative assistants who can help connect you with a duty worker if you have an urgent need. Generally speaking, we would want to be called. We would want the DHS caseworker to be called if it was anything urgent related to the child, because we are the legal guardian. But there are certain other things, like, for example, if school was getting out early, that would go directly to the resource parent. So we would encourage you to connect with your local points of contact to have those conversations and see what exists at the school in terms of their protocol already, and then work out any issues that might come up. So I hope that answers the question.
It does. I work with OCFS, and just the school is one of the districts is just very adamant that they want us to provide more than that. And we've had a meeting with several of the school staff, but anyhow, thank you.
Sure. And Christine, I'm happy to problem solve if there's like a specific situation or school. I'm happy to help work that through and try to come up with some sort of agreement between us and the school around what to do in those kinds of situations. So, thank you.
All right. And I believe the question in the chat was around, will the recording be available? Absolutely. I especially love watching the recordings from the past 2 years of me bumbling my way through, but hopefully it's getting better all. Are we back seeing the screen? I hope.
We are.
Are there any other
Breakout.
questions?
Okay.
Oh,
You're good. You
you
got it on
could
the right one now.
okay. I'm not seeing any other questions, so
There
let's
was
get
well, I'm sorry, there was the one
Oh.
in the chat about who coordinates the invites and the scheduling of the BID.
who coordinates the scheduling.
Yeah, I think the question is that a DOE coordination or is that a DHHS coordination for the BID?
Is that an SAU coordination? You
Yeah,
mean?
I think so. Jenny, is Jenny still here?
Right.
That was Jenny's question.
According to the November guidelines, it would be up to the caseworker. And I say that so the caseworker would initiate that in coordination with the LEA foster care point of contact.
Thank you.
At this point, I am asking you to go into the form that has a little quiz, and you can retake it as many times as you want, but we have 4 minutes remaining to the full hour. And I know that if I send you off, you won't take the time to do the quiz, and then you won't have your contact hour, and then you will all email me and it'll get buried in my email box. So if you would please it will really just take you a minute to take the quiz. OCFS points of contact, you do not, unless you want an hour contact hour, I don't think you need to take the quiz, but you're welcome to, because sometimes, you want things for your refrigerator that have your name on it, my signature, all of that. So some of you are clicking on the form, I hope. If you are going to be logging off, OCFS district points of contact, I can't thank you enough. You are superheroes. What you do day in and day out, I'm just so thankful that our state has you. And I really hope that these conversations help solidify relationships within your districts. And if there's anything that we can do, I know many of you have me on speed dial, and I love that. Call me anytime. If I don't have the answer, I'll, get Sarah and Signe involved, and you'll have a team approach. But we really want to be here to support you. We're very, very thankful for all that you do. I'm very thankful for all the LEA contacts do, but I want you focusing on the quiz right now. Thank you all profusely. We will stay on if there are any questions. Like I said, you can take that quiz as many times as you need. But we'll stick around in case you have other questions. Thank you, thank you, thank you to Sarah and Signe for joining us. Jill, thank you for being my partner in this, and